all that bad, but limit your dollar exposure in the coming year. Um, the idea is to make fungibility difficult. Um, Travel, immigration, everything is going to be quite messy, you know, as some if these wars continue, right, then some regions, then crude oil price goes up, and then Nigeria appreciates even more because Nigeria will not go to war with anybody. All these things they are saying, they will come, whatever they ask, we'll say yes, and they will go. We will not go to war. We don't like we are men of peace. Not- we are not we are not men of war. If I mean what happened that they bombed Nigeria, if it happened in some other countries, they would have turned to war. We are men of peace. Jamal, Elawao, that's how we're not, so you have to understand um what exactly PF said anything that will affect everyone there. We don't want. Just allow us be going. You can even install a white president. Yeah, the one shouting, So, and I like to take strategy from economic strategy from the point of survival. You understand how best, I'm not talking about global politics now. So there's no morality of whether I'm on Trump's side or any side. I'm talking about what is good for you, what's good for your portfolio, what's good for your. If you have a dollar portfolio and let's say it's $1 million, if you leave it and do nothing, at the end of the year, it will take a hit. That's what I'm saying. And you're going to see losses, right? Nobody's going to bank on war except those that have to gain from it, which means investor money will start to run out also. Um, in terms of Africa, now this is where the opportunity is this year. Africa is the sector that will grow. Not just Nigeria, Africa. And everybody has seen it, and everybody is scared of the potential that Africa will have. As African countries continue to open borders to each other, as they start to build roads like the Lagos Abidjan road, I don't know if you've heard about it. I mean, there are opportunities everywhere. I don't know if our eyes are open, right? The AFDB is active across Africa trying to build roads, connecting one place to another, so that you can actually literally drive and carry goods from Lagos to Cote d'Ivoire and sell. So your market through the AFCA also is now wide, right? Now these are the early days, so there's skepticism. Again, real businessmen don't thrive on skepticism, right? So you just sit down and you watch as it begins to unfold. I've seen discussions of global trade go escalate, right? Because people are actually making foreign exchange, not necessarily USD, but foreign exchange from other markets, right? So the other economies in Africa, Ghana, um, Angola, Kenya, Tanzania, South Africa, I think those economies are ripe and mature. There's nothing wrong with taking, if you have some resources, taking a recce trip to one of those countries and seeing where the opportunities are. Make contacts. Don't just limit yourself because the economy in Nigeria is small, is narrow. Go and watch the semi-finals of the Nations Cup. While you're there in Morocco, see what you can do. Morocco, Egypt, Tunisia, Algeria, those places are open. In fact, Morocco is open. This hosting of the Nations Cup is one of the things that they're doing to show the world that they are open for business. Right? The minute Dubai shut down for Nigerians, Egypt and Morocco opened up. Doha opened up, right? They started to see that there was an opportunity because Nigeria was in the top 10 of nationals that spend in Dubai. And I had that data from Dubai DTCM, right? So they started to open up. That's why you see a lot of packages go to Egypt. When you see those packages, remember I always talk about strategy and the operating environment. Ask yourself what's going on in the background. Why are there suddenly so many packages to Egypt? Visa included, 2 point something million naira. Why? Because the companies have, some people have sat down in a room, have written a script and saying, open up this country. Open up means open up to trade, right? Don't limit your earnings to naira, to what you're earning here. Get up and look at the African markets. Look at Egypt. Look at the North African markets. More and more, Yeah, people say they are self-sufficient. They are not. I have at least two friends, two, no, a friend and someone I know that they have written letters to and paid full ticket for. Come and see what we are doing here. And Morocco. And I'm saying Morocco is actually inviting people, paying for people to come because they have an investment arm that's trying to open up Morocco to the rest of Africa, cautiously, but trying to open up. So look at those places. Look at the Francophone West Africa. Some of you might need to pick up a language or employ someone that speaks another language, right? And look at Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal, Cameroon. Cameroon is still trying to come out. Cameroon, right? For Anglophone, you have Ghana. That's the only. Liberia is pretty small, but Ghana is ready, you know, for business, a lot of business. And for East Africa, of course, you have Rwanda, you have Uganda, Tanzania, and Kenya. And then for the Southern Africa, you have South Africa itself. If you can find business to do in South, I mean, legitimate business, because South Africa is, oh my God, if you can find something to do, But Africa is open. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Don't limit. If you sell clothes, if you're a tailor, if you're whatever it is, find just open yourself up to those markets. Now, so as the world starts to Europe and America, all of them start to go to war. They look for to Africa for resources, right? Nigeria is also going to be a play. Now, you all heard that President Trump attacked. Well, the U.S. shot drone strikes into Nigeria or missile strikes into Nigeria on Christmas Day, right? They reduced Nigeria's B1, B2 visa. They first reduced it from 5 months to 5 years to 3 months, and then they now sort of cancelled all immigration paths, from Nigeria to America. And you must be like, again, I always want you to ask what is happening. There's something is happening. People have sat down and they've had a discussion, and something is happening. You know, did you know? And I just want to say this also that on the 19th of December, the United States of America invested $5 billion into Nigeria, into one particular sector in Nigeria, which is the health sector, on the 19th of December. Now, the question is, having said they will do all this, having brought all these sanctions, releasing missiles and all that, why are they investing $5 billion? Usually, Global Fund, USAID, PEPFAR, all the American people, they do $30 million, $5 billion, but this is $5 billion. Something is not clicking. When you see that in the news, you should sit back and first ask yourself, what's happening here? Then secondly, say, where's my own in this $5 billion, right? So essentially, there's a lot going on. There are opportunities going on in different sectors, right? So Nigeria will have a play. Nigeria will have a play, and if you um if you have this play, then you need to start looking at, okay, which sectors will thrive in Nigeria. I don't want to bog you down with budget numbers and all those things. And I was telling them yesterday at the interview that Praise set me up for, that there are three economies in Nigeria. There is the formal sector, there's the informal sector, and there's the shadow economy, right? Now, everything the government is trying to do, because our tax to GDP ratio is between 3 and 6%. Now, between 3 and 6% means that of the value being created in Nigeria, the government can only tax about 3% of that value, or 6%. And they don't like that. So they are trying to, this new tax law, everything is trying to bring more people into the tax net. And by the way, try to formalize the informal sector, right? But then there is the shadow economy that is a problem because it runs parallel, all the illegal activities, everything runs through that shadow economy. And the government is trying to reduce the activities that are going on in the shadow economy and bring more of it into the formal sector. And essentially, that's how countries evolve. Every country in the world had a shadow economy, including the US, in the era of prohibition. And as their laws and regulators get stronger, those things, they read a riot act to them and they bring them into the formal sector. Now, the movement of the shadow economy into the formal sector creates big opportunities for first movers, right? First movers. So, for instance, if you look at the sectoral contributors to Nigeria's GDP, you have telecoms. Telecoms, I think, contributes about between 19%, information and communications, 19% to our GDP. Now, until 2021, when the GSM companies came, that 19% was out, was missing. It wasn't there, right? Now it's there. So they are trying to bring mining to us now start contributing like 6 to 9% to the GDP, right? So you see more, which means that there are some people operating in these sectors. The question I have for you is that what are you looking at? Which sectors are you looking at? New sectors will come alive in Nigeria, and as those sectors come alive, there's opportunity for first movers. Remember those that came first in telecoms, they were selling SIM cards at 25,000 naira. That was the first mover advantage, right? They were selling phones at ridiculous prices. Those are first movers, and a lot of people made money through that whole path. Now, when the industry stabilized, even the GSM companies don't make a lot of money from voice call credit anymore. It's now data. Because before industries settle down, they go through a life cycle. And that life cycle now demands that you make some money. So you want to be the first boots on the ground in several of the newer industries like mining, in several of the newer industries like steel, in several of the newer industries like power, in several of the newer industries, alternative energy. You want to be the first boots on the ground. Again, stop thinking small, start thinking, sort of large. Biodegradable energy, recycling, these things are becoming necessary because you know, we are becoming more sophisticated as a people and we need these things. So, what sectors will thrive? Where do you need to play? And how do you need to play in them? I've mentioned some of these sectors. All you need now is just to study, get information, and have enough courage to sort of get yourself ready to play in that. So I've said that if you're going to invest in the local stock exchange. That's something that people have been making a lot of money. It's just like an ecosystem that subsists for itself, right? I've been making a lot of money. If you want to understand it, take time, understand it, and get yourself in it. That's another era where, you can thrive economically, you know. So I've said quite a bit, right? First thing I said was one, don't keep all your money. This is not the year to keep all your money in USD. It won't work. Take a hedge position so that whatever happens, because the global economy is sort of fragile, right? I've said look at Africa, start looking at African countries. Last year, this 2025, I went to Liberia, did some things. I'm going to Liberia this year again. Start looking at African countries. You never know where the gates will open up from, right? Start looking at African countries. If you're going to operate in Nigeria, right, then look at the sectors where things will thrive, right? And follow those sectors. Follow the money. Follow those sectors. Um, I'll give you an example. In healthcare, healthcare is one sector where another set of billionaires will come, right? So the global economy, Trump said, stop work. USAID, all of them, you guys are aware, he sent all of them out. And but USAID was the biggest buyer of drugs in Nigeria for a long time, right? So after you send them out, there's a vacuum. That vacuum is where local billionaires are made, right? So immediately, Nigeria had to set up a company that will be strategic purchasing organization, and they've done that, and they've done a lot over the last 18 months. A lot has gone down. If you were in healthcare and you did not know about it, then your ears were not on the ground. It has passed you by. I will not even lie. It's the same thing with mining. When I saw GDP mining, man, we never saw mining. I think mining is, I wrote it down somewhere, 6%. Mining and quarrying is now 6% of our GDP, which means While we have been shouting about illegal mining all over the country, the formal mining sector is growing. What do they need? What can you supply them? What do they need? Do you have expertise there? Go and look for those that are there. The formal mining sector is growing. Gradually, the formal mining sector is growing. That will happen to the alternative energy sector also. That will happen to the steel industry also. Did you know that as we are sitting there, we're talking, we're complaining, GSC is assembling vehicles in Ikeja, in Lagos. So you see, why is there GSC, Chinese car everywhere? They're assembling them. They're bringing them semi-knocked down, they're assembling them. All we need is for our steel industry to work. Innocent, GSC, jobs, not just jobs, but supplies. So I'm personally very optimistic about Nigeria in this year because the global economy has shown us that there's nowhere to run to. That they are always, look at the way immigration is going. If you even want a safe environment, Ajole, Dabile, that one is clear. So whatever you do, and this is not to say to discourage people from being around. I encourage you go around the world, get your expertise, get your experience, even enjoy yourself around the world. Live if you want to, but put one leg in Nigeria so that you don't be like those that when you finally decide, okay, let me come back, everybody has gone, right? So there's quite a lot, that can be sort of harnessed within Nigeria. Now, I believe that this session will be more useful through questions and answers. So I will stop here for now and we can take as many questions as we want. Thank you.
Thank you very much, FO. I mean, you have said a whole lot in so short a time. And, you know, I, everyone that can see that there are movements across the globe. And but many people are given to the noise. Um, and for our people, I did an audit with people last year, and I concluded that the biggest challenge that many people had was distraction. Distraction was the biggest enemy. But distraction did not look like an enemy. It was something they loved to do. It was something that took them away from their focus. It was something that made it look like, I mean, I was talking to a friend yesterday. No, okay. So we hosted a politician from Nigeria in Canada, and then when he was sharing a whole lot of things with us and all the opportunities and things happening. And so I was talking to another friend, and he said, God will do whatever God will do in Nigeria. And I said, you see, this statement is the biggest problem that we've had, that God will do what God will do. So who is God going to use to change our country or to change Africa if you are expecting God to? So people are distracted, people are busy in activities, but it looks like we have not been trained to see. For example, you talked about mining. The information out there about mining is that you will get killed. All the generals are the ones mining. All the I want you to speak to our thought process, how we more, because you see, as the thinking is that so is. If I think it was you that was sharing about a guy that was doing a visualization exercise, who was a blind man, and they said he should visualize himself, his future. Even in his visualization, he still saw himself as a blind person. So there is no way the guy is ever going to see. I wanted to speak briefly about the state of our heart, how our mind needs to begin to think, how our mind needs to begin to position, so that we can spot opportunities and we don't leave it to, God. God will do it ministry. Now, if you have a question, you can drop it in the chat box. I'll read it. You can send privately to me, or you can raise your hand. Yeah, Fisai, over to you.
Fine, thank you. Someone just said something, I think it's David in the section about a friend who collects money via Momo and found out that most of his um, sales comes from Cote d'Ivoire, and that's going to happen a lot. That's going to happen. In fact, I'm encouraging some people to go and learn how to speak French because
Mm.
you're going to need to push yourself into Francophone. I also went to Cote d'Ivoire this year, also trying to break new frontiers. Now, in terms of your mind, PF is the expert on the mind. Me, I'm an expert on fact. fact and strategy. And someone asked me, you are quite successful, and you do quite a lot of things. What do you take? I said, I take responsibility.
mm,
If I don't do it, it won't be done. So I take responsibility. And so I'm going to give you fact because when you say God will do it, it's such an ignorant, incomplete truth. And the problem with incomplete truth is that I've committed myself to teaching the truth fully and teaching it at a pace and to a point that it can be useful to the end user. So when people try to get spooky, and I call it spooky because it's not spiritual at all, and say God will do it, I will now take you to the Bible and show you a few things. So allow me. Um, First of all, Jesus went to the madman of gatherings and he cast out the devils from the man. And the minute the devils came out, they said, now we are in limbo. We don't have anywhere to go. And they said, put us inside the swine, right? They said, put us inside the swine so that they will have somewhere to go. Because, and I want you to hear me clearly, spirits don't have jurisdiction on the earth. Listen to what I'm saying. Wealth creation, wealth creation, or wealth, since you can't create anything, wealth itself is about one, jurisdiction, the right to operate, right? That's the first thing before ownership. So wealth is ownership itself of resources. But the first step to ownership is jurisdiction, right? We are the ones that have jurisdiction. God is the father of spirits. God himself does not have jurisdiction on the earth without human agency, which means as a human being, you are an enforcer of the will of God, which means that the will of God can hang and nothing happens in your life. It will just hang if you don't enforce it. So those that say God will do it, or que sera sera, or God will do it in such a way that they don't take responsibility are ceding their jurisdiction to others. And I always say, if you don't do it, others will do it for you, right? So essentially, what it means is that spirits, that God that you're shouting, Elohim, does not have jurisdiction on the earth without human agency. So when he was about to bring Jesus, have you ever asked yourself why he didn't just speak him into being? Because he doesn't have that jurisdiction. He didn't have the right to do it. He had to pass him through the womb of a woman so that Jesus will have legitimacy. Any other thing would have been corruption. So that legitimacy is key to wealth, or else it's corruption. Then it's another government official that's stolen our money. The way you look, the more you look, the less you see. So he passed him through the woman, through the right sequence of activities, even though he did not allow the sperm of a man to corrupt it. That's the mystery of God. But he had to pass him through a woman, so that when Jesus came to the earth and he started to do miracles, right, he knew that they would challenge his legitimacy. That are you a spirit? So he called himself the Son of Man. He said, the Son of Man, the Son of Man. That Son of Man that he kept calling himself was to announce to all the spirits that he has legitimacy on the earth. He's the Son of Man. He has flesh. So if you don't enforce, that's why I said PF would deal with your mind. I'll deal with the facts. And the fact is, you must be responsible for your life, for a group of people that are in your ecosystem who rely on you. If you don't do it, it will not get done. So if you sit down and say God will do what he will do in Nigeria, either of two things will happen. The things that God has appointed for you to do will never get done, right? And another stream or generation of people will remain poor because you have not taken responsibility, right? That's one thing that can happen. The other thing that will happen is that it's possible for things to be getting better for others and not get better for you. And you'll be
mm,
a bitter minister of another type of gospel, if you get my meaning, right? So your mind must be one, First of all, of legitimacy of jurisdiction. Jurisdiction means this is our land. This is our thing. We are the ones that get results here, right? That's your first mindset. Second mindset is that there's nothing too big for us to get involved in. We are not small. Do you get what I'm saying? That's the mindset with which you enter Africa and enter the world and enter other places. Because if you feel that you are small, you're going to be like grasshoppers in your own mind, right? But if you enter, so two things, your mind has to claim it, take responsibility, and you have to say to yourself, in 2026, we are not small. I told you it's going to start. If you don't see, you start 2026 on the tracks, not on the bed, on the tracks, right? When they say go, before they say go, you need to take off running. And it is motion sensitivity. Every other thing will meet you on the way. I hope this answers your question, sir.
Yeah. Someone is asking. Um. Okay, I'm coming. What can you advise about government treasury bills and bond? That's one person asking. Another person is asking, in light of this information, what can students do or a beginner do in all of this?
So there's no expert of the future now. All experts are experts of the past. We are all students, right? First of all, on treasury bonds will be very liquid. They will do very well if you are in for that kind of investment. Fine, buy your bonds. That's a way to sort of grow your wealth, but it doesn't grow too significantly because inflation is also high. If inflation is 13%, treasury bills are doing 20 something. Uh, Yeah, I guess it's good for what it is, but I'm just a bit more adventurous in more aggressive, and more purposeful, sorry, in using wealth to create impact, right? So yes, for liquidity, it's very good. If you have some money to put aside, buy your bills by all means. Um, the government has shown stability, right? Um, and that stability, the currency stability in everything, it seems, I mean, if you ask anybody, it seems like this election is like foregone conclusion. It's not as hot as the last election where we didn't know what will happen. It just seems like I don't really see, anybody who will compete. Now, I'm not saying there's nobody that can compete. I'm just saying that the guys that are coming together to compete now, they don't have one agenda. At some point, to scatter again when they will say, okay, who will be Arrowhead? And this one is not selected as Arrowhead, and he gets angry and say, I can't be vice. You understand? So I don't really see that although we're hearing stories from different places that did not say, oh, they won't back him, but all those are I believe there's a script at play. So what that means anyway, I'm not talking politics now. What that means is the stability over the next 4, 5 years, 5, 6 years means that your treasury bonds will probably do well because of that. Once the market senses that stability, then right. Um, Secondly, if you as a student, this era of the internet, there's too much for you to. People that didn't go to school are doing things. Why is school an excuse? You know, you can trade. That's something that easily, if you give yourself 2 hours a day, you can start to trade forex legally. As a student, that's something you can do. While studying to do what you want to do. You find out that when you are ready to leave school, you now have a source of liquidity. You know, so from small amounts, you can invest. You can do so much as a student. This you can even offer services, right? Students are doing these jobs that are paying $1,000 a month, $2,000 a month online now. Secretarial services, it's about your time, right? It's about collapsing time and being able to competently finish what you're doing in school and still carry out a job. I know people who are doing that job. Some of them are coding. They have coding jobs abroad. They're in Nigeria here, earning 1,500, $2,000 a month. So this is not a year to call yourself a student. We're all students.
Okay. Someone is asking, can you that you talked you started by saying that a new world order has just started or that a reset just happened. Can you let us in into more sectors that we can focus on? I'm talking about surfacing possibilities so that we can clearly see where we can plug into instead of us guessing. You have mentioned mining and pointed attention to the ecosystem or value chain of mining. Can you do same for some other sectors that we should look at?
Yeah, I believe I already mentioned healthcare. Manufacturing. So right now, because of the foreign exchange, right, the government is going to prioritize local manufacturing companies. I know Indian companies that have started manufacturing antibiotics since last year because they were getting ready. They had information about this thing that's happening, right? So Mikio, for instance, has started manufacturing antibiotics. I hear Jawal too is going to manufacture corticosteroids, because they know that the market is going to be there for it, right? Um, so along that value chain, those that do logistics, medical logistics, temperature control, warehouses, healthcare is going to be big, right? Um, Mining, like I said, also renewable energy is going to be big. Power solutions that actually work. So find yourself going to China. I know a lot of people who have gone to China to look for real power solutions, right? Real power solutions that are cheap that can power houses. A lot of these countries are using these power solutions, right? Not the way solar is now that is expensive. You want to break that back and make sure, the Chinese are using small devices that are powering estates, powering big houses. So how do you get those power solutions? So those batteries are expensive, but how do you crash the cost, of those batteries? You see renewable energy taking over. You didn't know until they snuck in some charging points into Adeola Odeku in Victoria Island. Now those charging points are there. I know Sterling Bank is funding those that want to buy renewable solar panel, solar cars, solar powered cars, or not solar powered, so electric cars, right? EVs. So that's also taken. Uh, as the government goes, you find a lot more industries going off grid. Because that's the only way. I was talking to someone the other day, and did you know that Sterling Bank's headquarters in Marina is off grid? The whole building, 20 Marina, is off grid. The whole building. I'm like, when they told me, I said, innovation is just there, it's sitting down there. They are off grid, they're not using solar energy. Sorry, they're not using the national energy, it's off grid, renewable energy. So people are doing things, microcosms. Put your ear on the ground, be a researcher, research what's going on and see how you can scale it. Sometimes it might not even be your idea, it might be something that you can just help to scale. So um you need to start thinking about it, right?
Okay. Yeah, someone is asking, many indices for economic meltdown are flashing red across the Nigeria economy despite visible growth in the equity market. Same condition apply to US economy. I'm
Which
interested in your
indices?
view.
Which
Uh,
indices? Again, these are just rumors. Which indices? You have to say it. You can't say many indices. Which indices are flashing red? For economy, not political. For economic meltdown. It's not true. It's not true. Which indices? Inflation is coming down from 20% last year to 13% this year. Inflation is coming down. Headline inflation has come down by at least 700 basis points. We need to be factual and not emotional. If you're going to be emotional about this, then, and I was telling someone the other, I think it was PF I was telling, I was taking a plane to Abuja, and these days you can't even buy a flight the day before again. What's happening here, right? Let me tell you the truth. Nigerians are not being honest, right? Yes, when and I'm not speaking for the administration, please, I'm not. But you have to be factual. They took over, they removed fuel subsidy, right? And they floated the currency, and there was hardship for about 18 months. People complained there was a lot of hardship, and the hardship was clear. But then after a while, the hardship started to abate. But you see, because Nigerians are greedy, the cost of living did not come down with the dollar that came down. Dollar went to 1.6, came down to 1.4. But things are still at 1.6. That's just Nigerians. It's only Dangote that has reduced the price of fuel. And even as he has reduced the price of fuel, Nigerians have not reduced did the airlines reduce the price of tickets? No. Nobody's reducing the price of anything. So those things can sort of deceive, right? Those things can sort of deceive because the fuel price came down, but the price in the market has not come down. We were buying fuel at 1,000 naira. Do you know it's now 600 and something? 700 in some places. It's not 700 in some places. But the people, the Nigerians themselves, and that's the complaint that people were complaining about Dirty December. It said that Nigerians are going to kill Dirty December with greed. That how can someone be doing two, three bedroom flats in somewhere for 750,000 a night? Something that was 250 before everybody started shouting Dirty December. That's Airbnb. That's on us as a people. But it is not an economic indicator. The economy itself has softened. Some people are keeping the spreads. So I'll give you an example. FAC account is the allocation to to state governments, right? Do you know that every state governor has gotten 4 times what they got under Buhari? 4 times. Because the subsidy money went to them. But the miscalculation was that they would let it cascade to the people. It's a lie. The money stopped there. So it's about where these barriers are and how this thing can be freed up. But yes, I do agree with you. If you sit down, things are hard because it has not cascaded down. The market woman will still sell. It's like it's unimaginable for us to reduce the price of things. But we saw Dangote do it, right? Now that the price of fuel reduced, why didn't the price of food reduce? It should be straight line, but it's not because of greed, and that's on us as a people. Why? Okay, if if you say food has not reduced, why didn't transport reduce? Why didn't air reduce? But fuel has reduced by 30%. PF 30%. So we need to watch it very carefully, right? Some people are eating and they will continue eating, and they will make sure that there's peace on as long as they eat. So it's not really economic indicators. It's greedy. I call it greedy coup, greedy coup,
Hmm.
corruption quotient.
Okay, Efo, now you talked about some people will keep eating. And I wanted to speak a bit on that because people are listening to us right now, and it looks like sometimes the door is locked in some of these sectors,
Yeah,
especially first movers advantage, for obvious reason. I mean, if I want to get into oil and gas right now, you have Dangote to contend with. If you
yeah,
want to say you want to build your own refinery, so it looks like every sector is on lockdown, not just in Nigeria, even outside of Nigeria. It's just
yeah.
that outside of here in America, for example, if you're audacious, you can actually go to the market, and then if you can make a lot of noise, the market will, respond to you if you really have solutions. Now, so people are listening and they are asking themselves, where do I start from? How do I engage? So I want to go into mining. You know, what are the practical ways? I want to go into real estate. I don't have so much money to invest or to start. I don't even know where to start. Because Lagos, for example, I'm not sure if there's any land available for sale
But
like
funny enough,
before.
there is interesting
Well,
all over the
I
place.
mean, Lagos State government has clamped down a whole lot
Mm,
on that.
yeah,
I know that they're trying to convert farmland into commercial, right now. But so, and it looks like the cost of entry is very, very high.
very high. I
So,
agree.
so people are asking, um, how do I play? How do I ensure that I am not saying no finger, my finger is not the short one?
It's not the short one, yes.
How do
So
I?
so so I hear you, PF, and one of the easiest ways to go in is knowledge capital, right? That's the power of thought leadership in any industry. It puts you in the room. You need to be in the room. Now, let me say this clearly. Please, I will say this clearly. You can quote me. It sounds very, but it's the truth. If you don't have a seat at the table, you are on the menu. I will say it again. PF said that you say all figures are not equal. Why is your own the short one? Me, I'm saying that if you don't have a seat at the table, you are on the menu. Ready? You know, point and kill. You're on the menu. So you cannot, your first goal is to have a seat at the table. Do you understand what I'm saying? Knowledge capital is the first step. And that's what helps being. And this is my model. Others may have a way. But how do I get a seat at the table? Before we started getting stake in some of those companies, before we started getting on the boards of some of those companies, we had to understand the industry. So we thought the financial services industry was saturated, and then came OPay. OPay is by far the most innovative company that I have ever seen in Nigeria over the last 10 years. PF, do you have an OPay account?
My office people have.
You have one personally.
No, I don't have a
You
personal account, but
have.
my
You don't know the. You have. OPay open account for everybody that has mobile phone number because they realize that the mobile phone number is an equalizer. The Nigerians unbanked, right, is a few million. Total bank population is like 30 something million. Total mobile phone, unique mobile phones is 90 million. Total subscription is 135. So unique numbers 90 million. Once you have a nine, you open for you. The day you decide that you want to join the flock, it's like this. And I know they're doing something. They're doing something so it ties into everybody. So that was a sector that seemed like, you know, it couldn't be hacked. And they hacked it with innovation. So the first thing I always say is build your knowledge in the sector and get a seat at the table. You know, if you get a seat at the table, you know, you know, if you get a seat at the table, then you can start having discussions about because if you're not at the table, they will shave your head. You can start having discussions about policy. You can start having, you know, someone is saying there's a mining conference in Ghana. I attended one last year, and many of the international partners basically looking for local partners. They have even put dates. So if I now say, look at the dates here now, PF. If I now say how many people will fly to Accra for this section, now that's when you find out that people are not really serious.
they can even take a bus. They don't have to fly. If you say
They-
flight is expensive,
this
take a
is
bus.
someone volunteering information now, saying they're looking for local partners. It is not as blocked as it seems. The problem is, yes, I know barriers are high. I do agree in some sectors. But there are other sectors, there are other areas. In fact, there are other things that you need to, sometimes you need to interpret other people's dreams before you interpret your own dream, like Joseph. So you might have to do other things before you have the capital to fight and enter one sector that the barrier is high. InterSwitch recently got their mobile phone license. So that they are going to launch a mobile phone company soon. As if they're not billionaires enough. And I hear as of last week that they got their travel agency. People are entering sectors, though. But the problem is that some of them are entering from positions of strength. And our hands are basically weak until so strengthen your hands. That's my first thing. Get a seat at the table. And that you can do through thought leadership. First of all, like there are places PF goes that is respected. And some people will say, look, join my board first. I beg, just join my board. Let's see your face. And then one day in one board meeting, you hear someone saying this and this, and that's how it starts. So I'm a member of some boards that I didn't put 1 naira. In fact, there's a country club, Big Boys, a new country club that they're building. It's on an island on the Lekki axis. Island, I can take you to the island. The guy told after I finished all the work, the guy said, look, I want to give you, I think I should give you 2%. That's how I got 2% of a country club.
Hmm.
Do you understand? That's just the way it works. But if you don't bring value to the table, nobody's going to look at you. And if you, when there, everybody's at the table, you are complaining about the high barriers, right? If when everybody's at the table, you are complaining about the high way of life, things, I don't think there's any country in the world where There will be disinflation is a bad thing, right? Where the price of things will go down. It will keep going up. The question is, will your capacity to spend also go up?
Hmm. 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 Okay. Does anybody have a question? You want to ask live question? You can raise your hand. I'll take one or two. Please, you can raise your hand, and I'll take you before we actually wanted to do 1 hour. Okay, Wura, your hands are raised. Can you
So
unmute yourself?
someone said OPay calls twice a week to ask you about your OPay account. Accounts where you don't open.
Yeah, Wura, yeah, Wura,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Good evening. Thanks, for PF.
Mm.
My question has to do with what you said about the not keeping money in dollars, and I assume that it's general to FX. So, if one has earnings in pounds, for example, would it be advisable to take it back into the Nigerian economy to invest or invest it in pounds?
Hmm. All right. So again, that's a very good question. I think I'll use an example to answer that question. Now, you remember we're balancing risk, right? So before, 10 years ago, I would have said, take it to pounds, you know, lock it in the American economy, lock it. That's what I would have said 10 years ago. Um, but now we are seeing legitimate threats, immigration threats from some of these countries. We are seeing legitimate threats. Imagine not being granted a visa or being kicked out of a country where you have like £2 million there, like Abramovich. We're seeing legitimate threats, right? So I said hedge, which is to say, hedging is a practice that allows you take an equivalent position in an equivalent currency without while managing your risk, right? So for instance, if I wanted to invest £1 million in the UK, how about I break it? There are other investment hubs around the world. So that I don't lose a million, I keep 400K in the UK. Yeah, it's something to get, and I invest in other markets, even other African markets, depending on where my expenditure is. But then while I invest, be wary about the dollarization. Because one day, just like we woke up this weekend, this week has been crazy with Trump moving left and right, right? Now, when the Chinese ship arrived in Venezuela, let me put it to you this way. If one trigger-happy soldier had released a bullet from the Chinese ship to the American ship or vice versa, we will not be saying what we are saying now.
Hmm.
Just one trigger-happy person. Look, markets will shut down, lines will close, everything will just scatter. You now start getting palpitation. Meanwhile, Africa will be operating is analog. So put some in that analog so that you can function. You will not just go and say all your investment, your lives. You understand what I'm saying?
Hmm.
The Nigerian stock market is not doing too badly. I always say if you can invest in it. It's nascent, it's growing. Just balance that investment. However, I say this with a caveat. If most of your expenditure is going to be in foreign currency, then there's an FX risk with investing in Nigeria, where even if you do 80% return, one slide of the currency will wipe you out.
Hmm.
So you need to be careful. So what did I say then? I said, first of all, consider where if you are going to be paying school fees, a lot of school fees, you understand, then keep your investments in the country you are going to be paying school fees. But if you are an empty nester, you have paid your school fees, you are now trying to consolidate generational wealth, then start thinking about distributing it in such a way that you are not too heavy in any part of the world, just in case there's instability. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, someone is asking, what are your views about forex trading and cryptocurrency?
Uh,
Are these valid market to build capital for larger
of
investors?
course, if you have the temperament, Forex is not for the faint-hearted. I was looking at Bitcoin the other day, and it's 60 something thousand to 80 something thousand dollars for one Bitcoin. Don't you remember when Bitcoin was $4,000? I remember. They are valid markets, but one remember that they said they use it to fund terrorists. So one day they can make a policy and shut down your big portfolio. Like I said, it's not for the faint-hearted. So separate Forex from crypto, right? Separate Forex from crypto, right? I think one of the biggest opportunities for investment in local, and I'm waiting for it, I'm building a small war chest for it, is Dangote listing the refinery on the stock exchange. That's going to be like when MTN first listed, right? It's going to be like something that you just keep for your children because in 10, 15, 20 years, it's going to be a massive. He said that he's going to list it on the stock exchange. He's going to list 30% or so on the stock exchange that he wants Nigerians to buy, right? Um, that's going to be one of the biggest opportunities. I don't know if it will happen in 2026 or 2027 or the year after. But once that thing comes, be ready. Don't say you don't have money. Once Dangote lists on the stock exchange, refinery buy because that's the product that you use every day. My rule of thumb is don't invest in a product you don't use. So the shares that I buy are Amazon, the ones I use every day, Apple, Google. Please separate Forex from crypto. They are different. You can trade Forex legitimately and be okay. Crypto too can be legitimately done, but it's not for the faint-hearted.
Okay, those of you asking investment question, I would advise that you talk to your investment analyst, all right, so that they can help you look at your portfolio and know what is best for you, so that you don't go and quote us and say we ask you to go and do something. Okay, if there is no other question, any other question before I ask Fisayo to give his final word, and I want him to look at his crystal ball as usual, which is going to be the final act today. Okay. Before I do that, for those of you who have been in goal scoring, remember we start the Wall and Gates Challenge tomorrow. We've said that the next 10 years about systems. We start the Wall and Gates Challenge tomorrow. If you are yet to download the if you are yet to download the 11-day plan, please find a way to get it. We say we're going to be praying every night, which is going to be 9 p.m. Central Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and 4 a.m. Nigerian time. Not just prayers, we're also going to be explaining how each of the gates function as you plan to build generational wealth. So don't miss out of that program. If you don't have details, find a way to ask the admin for it. Admin, if you have the plan, you can upload it so that they can download. Okay, Efo, I want to look at I know this is the year one of the next 10 years. And in Egypt, they had the 7 years of plenty, they had the 7 years of lack. What should we expect? What should we focus on as a people? One of the greatest challenge we have had is this individualistic behavior.
Mm.
I am full. I don't care what happens to other people, and it's become a time bomb where even though you have a big house, someone is hungry around you and is not happy that you're driving your big car. Um, you have talked about the need to get into African country, and I think it's not something we have really focused on. The need to get into other African countries, and see what is possible. Even take a trip there. The next 10 years are going to be critical. I know that generational wealth are going to be built. What would be your final take if you were to be talking to us based on where we should be, what we should do, what can happen in the next 10 years? What would you be saying to the people?
Someone asked someone where the growth sectors will be, and the person said Africa. That's why this whole fight is. That's what this whole thing is about, right? If I was to tell you how to invest in the next 5 years, I'll say build a balanced portfolio real estate in some critical markets, rental real estate, try to own your own home quickly, rental real estate, and then you start investing, utilize platforms like Bamboo, where you can invest directly, you know, and make a lot of money and watch the markets. Wake up from your slumber, right? Don't, it's possible for us to go through a haze. Don't go through a haze. Wake up, look. If Nigeria is too unstable for you, start looking at Ghana. But remember, jurisdiction and legitimacy will drive investment. So investing at home is a must because any government can wake up and send you out of a market that you don't control. Someone said yesterday that did you know that the money that was gotten from the sale of Chelsea Football Club, the House yesterday raised the motion to send it to Ukraine.
Mm.
That means that the man did not touch the money. He sold it and they didn't allow him to touch the money, all on suspicion without any proof that he was in bed with Putin. Now you have to understand that this is very, 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 very interesting, right? So what will I say? I'll say, look, balanced portfolio of real estate and more liquid assets, right? Do it aggressively. It's time, right? The 7 years of plenty are here. In another 7 years, these economies will shut down, which means not shut down, they'll close up to opportunities. So the sectors I have mentioned, mining, steel, and healthcare, billionaires will arise. Not one, not two, billionaires will arise. The question is, would they be the billionaires we already know, or would they be new billionaires? I know a few guys that will be new billionaires. Logistics, 3PL, because our market is narrow, and this is the opportunity for it to get deeper. Foreigners will try to play in those sectors. Go. Some of them are looking for local partners. The biggest thing that you will sell over the next 7 years is trust. You don't need money. Stop complaining about money. You don't need money. The biggest thing is trust. If you can get the right people to trust you, right, you would make a lot of money. And so build that portfolio and trust. Stop complaining. I told myself about 7 years ago, I'm not going to complain about any government. It's accounting. If you credit here, there's debit elsewhere. I'm looking for the other leg. Once I hear a policy, I'm looking for the other leg. You understand what I'm saying? So stop complaining. Treat the next few years that the economy of Nigeria will be stable. I just told you that America is sanctioning Nigeria and donating $5 billion to healthcare. There's a debit leg. Make it your life's mission to find the other leg. Right? And while everybody is giving to the noise, just go on that, find the other leg. And then, of course, decide where you want to be an expert. Build the expertise so that you can have a seat at the table. It is when you get a seat at the table that investors will even call you and say, why don't you do this thing? A lot of the opportunities I've seen that I've owned things, someone has called and said, you can do it now. The way I'm saying you can do it. Say, I can't do it. You can do it. We'll back you. That's how it works. Oh. You will not sit down and money will fill your account and then you start investing. It's motion sensitivity. That's how resources work. First of all, get a seat at the table. If you didn't hear anything I said today, get a seat at the table through thought leadership, study, become an expert. Get a seat at the table. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Fisayo, for another year, another insight. Thank you for what you've shared with us. We're going to run with this. I think we're very clear. Please, in case you forgot everything, next 10 years about systems, it's about accountability, it's about succession. Those three words, don't forget them. Don't be one man riot squad. No. Once you don't have a system, you will not last. So please, if you can go back and listen to everything we've taught on systems, and please plan the wealth for your family. Don't think this generation, think the next 7 generations. All right, resources flow in the direction of projects. If you think 7 generations, that's the kind of wealth that will come to you. So I want to thank you, Fisayo. Thank you very much for obliging us. God bless you so much. We look forward to sharing testimonies. And like we said, Walls and Gates Challenge starts tomorrow. We put it on the chat box. You can download the details. What we're focusing on every day. We're starting with the gates, the sheep gates tomorrow. Next tomorrow will be fish gate, and then after that we'll do the old gate. So we're looking at the 10 gates Nehemiah rebuilt, and then the tower that I rebuilt, and how it's going to play out in the world, in your family, and in generations unborn. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. We love you all. If you go to House of Saviors YouTube page, you can rewatch this session. Efo, thank you very much as usual. House of Saviors resume next week, second Sunday. We do one session a month. And this year, I was sharing with Ayo, please, the year of emotion ended last year. We will not beg people to attend meetings. We will not even remind people anymore. All right. There are so many new things coming up. All right. So if you can put it on your diary, diarize it, and find your way to that meeting, we will no longer beg people to attend sessions that can move their lives forward. We've done that. We've carried a lot of people on our shoulders over the years. That stopped last year. We're not taking that into the new year. So whenever you hear there's a meeting, don't expect anyone to remind you. Find your way there if you need it. If you don't, if it's just two people in the room, well, okay. We'll share the details, information. Something happened last year. A few people knew about it. That there are places you can. There are some parts of the world where you can buy lands for as cheap as $300, right? And these are legitimate lands. But some of you were not at that meeting. Some people were able to take advantage of that, and they got what they needed to get. So we look forward to seeing all of you next week, Sunday, 2 p.m. Nigerian time. I think 7 a.m. Central time. We quickly do it before we go to church here. Okay, thank you, everyone. It's going to be an amazing year. I'll see you at the Walls and Gate Challenge. For those of you who can make it, we pray every day and we share details of what the year is going to look like. Thank you. Have a fantastic night. Bye bye.